morning, good afternoon, good evening. The ease with which Zanu PF is managed to outwit the opposition and the ordinary Zimbabweans themselves is disappointing. The people of Zimbabwe, we have not been paying attention at all. Zanu PF has managed to stay in power ever since independence in 1980 because they've been able to outwit the opposition and with even greater ease outwit the electorate. I have said on this record, on this platform, that when the people of Zimbabwe came out in their thousands in support of the 2017 military coup, that was a mistake. I said it at the time, and I was proven right. The people should have been concentrating on what is it that we need to do to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. That is not the same thing as what is it we need to do to replace Mugabe. But they were outwitted into believing that if they get rid of Mugabe, everything else will fall into place. The coup leaders, Mnangagwa and his colleagues, told the people following the 2017 military coup that the coup's primary purpose was to end the corruption and the mismanagement that had caused the country's economic collapse. And number two, it was going to end the case of rigged elections. The country was going to have free, fair, and credible elections. That's what Mnangagwa promised the people. The people believed him. The warning lights were, who is Mnangagwa and those around him involved in the coup? These are the very same individuals who were behind the Zanu PF dictatorship for the 37 years since the country's independence. Mnangagwa was Mugabe's henchman. And everyone could see this military coup was only removing Mugabe and replacing him with Mnangagwa. In other words, instead of fighting to end the dictatorship, the people were being promised that replacing the dictator of the day, Robert Mugabe, with Mnangagwa would solve all their problems. Replacing one dictator with another did not end the dictatorship. That was the moral of the story. It's a pity that people haven't learned anything from that. because we are being caught up in a similar situation, or be it this time the dictator who we are fighting to replace is Mnangagwa. Ever since the 2023 elections, which Zanu PF rigged, Mnangagwa has been very careful to take pressure from the fact that he was illegitimate. Those elections were not free, fair, and credible, and therefore then he was not legitimate. By throwing another problem in the field, the issue of Mnangagwa staying on beyond 2028 was thrown in soon after the 2023 elections. Before people could focus on the reality that Mnangagwa had rigged the 2023 elections and therefore then he is illegitimate, they were engaged with another problem. Are we going to let Mnangagwa extend his stay in office beyond 2028? And many people fell for that. The party has been able to grow that issue. I'm not saying that Mnangagwa has no ambition to stay beyond 2030. He might have. But what I'm saying is our fighting on that front will only stop Mnangagwa staying in office beyond 2028, which was the same thing as getting rid of Mugabe. Replacing Mugabe with Mnangagwa got rid of one dictator only to replace him with another. It did not end the dictatorship itself. What we should be aiming at is ending the dictatorship itself. Because that is killing two birds with one stone. Get rid of the dictatorship itself. You will not have any dictators. Dictators need to have a dictatorship. That is why it's important to concentrate on which one are we going to fight here. Are we going to fight this ED 2030 agenda, or are we going to fight to make sure 2028 elections are not rigged by Zanu PF and people are not conned to participate in their millions as they've done in the past to give that rigged election legitimacy? Here is a video clip of some of the Zimbabweans who are already heavily involved in the fight, as we want to call it, to stop agenda ED 2030 agenda.
Utaurire vana veZimbabwe kuti inoda kuwedzera dzimwe 2 years kuti usvike ku2030. Vana veZimbabwe vakupamatize mukaita mabvuma kuwedzera 2 years idzodzo chinomutasa kuti awedzere dzimwe 20 years chii. Saka isusu sevana veZimbabwe . Tingatauriko zvino takamira kuti vangoparura muone noitika asi iye pavakada kuti
I do apologize for the poor sound quality of that video clip. But what the gentleman was saying there is a message that will resonate with many people. If we allow Mnangagwa to add another 2 years to his presidency, so that he stays in power another 2 years beyond 2028, what is there to stop him asking for 20 more years? The prospect of that is daunting for anyone. Another 20 more years of this Mnangagwa corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical regime is just unthinkable. He's just galvanizing his base. But I would say we have a solution to that. What will stop Mnangagwa extending his stay in power by 2 years, let alone 20 years, is making sure that Zanu PF does not rig the 2028 election and get away with it. That is what will stop him. If we can stop Zanu PF rigging 2028 elections, that is what we should go for. But I'll be the first one to admit that we had the opportunity to implement the democratic reforms which have stopped Zanu PF rigging the elections during the GNU of 2008 to 2018. MDC, CCC leaders wasted that opportunity. That is water under the bridge. What we can do now is make sure that we don't participate in the flawed 2028 elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy. This is not an abstract idea. Zanu PF was forced to go into the GNU in 2008 because both SADC and the AU refused to give the regime legitimacy. That is what forced the regime to go into those power-sharing GNU. Yes, it's unfortunate that no meaningful reforms were implemented during the GNU of 2008 to 2018. We can make sure that this time the reforms are implemented. I know it's going to be very difficult for some people to drop this idea that ED 2030 agenda is the #1 issue before us, particularly when they hear such statements as if he claims if he's able to get 2 years to extend his stay in power by 2 years, you'll be able to extend it by 20 years. But I repeat, the ED 2030 is a decoy. We should focus on making sure that Zanu PF does not get away with rigged elections in 2028. Get that one right. It doesn't matter, even if between now and 2028, Mnangagwa is able to change the constitution to extend his stay in power. If we remain focused on the issue of 2028, Zanu PF must not get legitimacy. And they fail to get legitimacy. The country then will go into a new GNU. In the new GNU, it will not be a Zanu PF dictatorship. The dictatorship will be over. Particularly if we see to it that we implement the democratic reforms, as I've said. It is not a complicated argument. It's just that Zimbabweans have been naive and very gullible when it comes to issues like that. We must not repeat 2017, where all we did is remove one dictator to replace him with another. We don't want to see ourselves in 2028 stopping one dictator extending his stay in office, but only to get another dictator. Because if Zanu PF wins, the Zanu PF dictatorship will remain, and we will have a dictator. Think about it.